Sometimes I open my mouth and I don't know where I'm going with it. Like that.
You should start a podcast. Hello, hello.
Hey.
Episode 72.
Should we be talking about this?
I'm Rachel.
And I'm Chance.
And do we have anything to talk about? I mean, I hope so. It's a podcast. Do we have anything that we're supposed to say? Join Patreon.
Yeah.
If you want our shows ad-free, you could join for $1.
On Patreon.
Yeah, get them the night before and ad-free. Dude, it's just $1. And for our $5 tier, we're starting a new thing, the after show, the Swibitat after show. So you can hear Chance and I, really, no script, just kind of talk about how we felt about the episode we just recorded.
Yeah.
So if you like that, join our $5 tier. I don't have anything else to say.
No.
God, podcasting is hard.
Check us out on Instagram.
Yeah, do all those things that we tell you to do. Oh, a big thing. Guys, if you would leave us a review, that would be amazing.
Oh, that would be great.
So the new management company we're under is really on us about making sure that we say subscribe. I can't even say it normally. Subscribe and review. Because I guess that it puts us up in the algorithm of like shows that are mentioned to people.
Right.
So if you haven't already, that would be amazing. We would really appreciate it. I want to go first, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Because you said that yours, there was a death and mine has a couple deaths.
Oh, no. All right.
So I'm going to go ahead and start with mine, if that's all right. So this week, my topic is over Magdalena Solis, the High Priestess of Blood.
Oh, that sounds dark.
Yeah. I got my information from Medium.com, Britannica, World History, and Murderpedia. I love Murderpedia.
Murderpedia, yeah, that's a great site.
I love it because it basically just compiles all the other articles into one. It's the best. So this whole thing starts in 1962. There are two brothers, Santos and Cayetano Hernandez. And they show up in this tiny town of, oh God.
Say it.
Yerba Buena.
Sounds great.
Yerba Buena. Anyways, they show up in this town and they have a plan. This is all happening in Mexico, so I'm going to butcher a lot of things. I just apologize ahead of time. The Hernandez brothers, they grew up really poor as kids, so they had to kind of do petty crimes to make sure that they were...
Pickpockets.
Yeah, fed and taken care of. But of course, that always leads to bigger and bigger crimes. And for them, it turned into them being full-blown con artists.
I love a good con artist story.
Well, these guys are assholes, so... They would basically travel around Mexico pulling off these elaborate scams and then move on before they ever got caught. And this was the 60s, so there really wasn't like a paper trail and there was zero electronic trail.
Yeah, you could get away with so much back then.
Oh, yeah. They couldn't Google to see if you were who you said you were.
Right.
So like I said, they make their way into Yerba Buena. Yerba Buena. Why is that getting stuck in my face? They make their way into Yerba Buena, and this place is... calling it a town is a stretch.
Okay, very small.
Yes, it's super isolated. It's really just a bunch of farms, and it's like 20 of them.
Okay, countryside.
Yeah, so maybe 50 people tops.
Okay.
And there's no stores or anything. They really just trade with each other to survive.
A barter system.
Yes. And they had little to no contact with the outside world. So they're very susceptible to con men coming in.
All right.
So when the Hernandez brothers show up, they are donned in like the cheesiest thrown together outfits, and they strut into the middle of town, and they claim to be Incan gods. This is the 60s.
Okay.
I feel like I have to remind myself specifically when I was doing research that this is the 60s, because this whole story sounds like it takes place in like the late 1800s.
Yeah.
But no. They walk in, they're like, we are the Incan gods, which is interesting because do you know much about like the Incan Empire?
No.
I didn't really know either, but I knew it was South America, and this is happening in Mexico. Which was confusing to me. So when I looked into the Incan Empire, they were in South America. their territory actually spanned from the top of South America kind of down to the bottom along the East Coast. And
East Coast?
The East Coast of South America.
Okay.
So by Peru and stuff like that. That's the only country I know. Peru and all the other places.
Ones that are around it.
Yeah, over there. Did you know that the Incan Empire had 6 to 14 million people in it?
Holy smokes.
Not only is that a ridiculous amount of people, but what a spread, man. Like 6 to 14 million. We couldn't pinpoint that a little bit closer.
No.
History is tough. But the Incans were like super ahead of their time. They created roads. They created the military. Also, none of this has to do with the story. I just wanted to tell you the cool stuff I found while looking up like the Incan Empire. But they also were the ones that kind of created a family unit, labeling people as aunts, uncles, and cousins.
Okay.
Because before that time, it was kind of a free-for-all on like who you would mate with.
Oh, no.
And the Incans were like, no.
There needs to be boundaries.
Yeah, these are part of your family as well. This is an aunt. Like, this is an uncle. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Well, they had about 15 gods and goddesses and 3, like, major ones. And, of course, these Hernandez brothers knew nothing about it because they were born and raised in Mexico, and the empires that ruled there were the Mayans and the Aztecs. Mm-hmm. So they came in saying they were Incan gods, but they really just talked as if they were Aztec gods. Does that make sense? Because that was the only thing they really knew about.
Right.
Well, for this tiny little town, when 2 Incan gods walk up in the middle of it, you're kind of like, okay.
And they're dressed fancy.
Yeah, this is, I don't know. There's no fact checking here, but I'm kind of on the edge here. And then all of a sudden, one of them makes a small rock disappear out of his hand.
Oh, it's
gods.
Magical.
Those are fucking gods. So these guys use sleight of hand tricks to convince this tiny town that they were in fact gods, and it worked.
And this is the 60s.
This is the fucking 60s. I guess because they're so isolated, they've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, that's true.
But again, man, it's hard to wrap my head around, really. So they start using their authority as gods by demanding money, like they need tithings from this town. And oops, there is none, because
they don't have money.
Yeah, they don't have any money. So instead, they're like, okay, well then you just need to lead a life of service and basically become my slaves, which everyone in the town fell suit.
That sucks.
Yeah. And this is where it starts to get real dark. They convince all the parents of the girls in the village, some as young as 14, that the gods needed to teach them about sex.
That's terrible.
Yeah, so these assholes are sexually assaulting all of these kids. 14 and up women.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, they're selling them into sex trafficking. Because they know people in the neighboring major cities that they can sell for money. They can sell them to for money.
Gross.
Yeah. And when they weren't preying on the young girls, they would basically demand sex or sexual acts from literally anybody at any time in the town. And if you didn't comply, they would basically say, oh, then you're not a believer.
Yeah.
And because there's an unbeliever amongst us, bad things are going to fall.
Oh, yeah. Using that trick.
They also said that if they were to do what they said, if the townsmen were to follow them, that the brothers would lead them to a cave that was full of riches and all these things. So everyone in the town was kind of looking at the people that were resisting, saying, hey, come on, just fucking, do what you're told so we can all be rich and we can all, move away or whatever. Mm-hmm. So there was pressure on them from the other townspeople as well. Yeah. Well, it gets to the point where they have convinced all the people of the town that part of their rituals, like daily rituals, was orgies. Oh. So they have everybody in the town having these orgies like day in and day out. Well, at this point, some of the townspeople are like, okay, we've been doing a lot of sex stuff. And I haven't seen different. Yeah, and I haven't seen any riches. Like, something feels off. Yeah. So the Hernandez brothers double down. And they're like, okay, I see what you mean. Let us go to the mountain and talk to, like, the god above us, like our boss, god boss, and see what's going on. Because we're not getting the word to take you to the riches yet. And when we return, we're going to bring a goddess with us.
Okay.
And the towns, I don't know why that appeases the townspeople, but they're like, yes, okay, great, go talk to your god boss, bring us back a goddess. So the Hernandez brothers go into the nearby city of Monterey, and this is the place where they've been selling the girls to the sex traffickers.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of have an in with some people. And they basically say, hey, we need a female that can con as good as we can. Do you have anybody? And they're like, oh, I know just the girl. Magdalena Solis.
All right.
A little background on Magdalena. She was forced into sex work when she was around 12. She grew up really hard on her own in the streets. But when she got a little older, she learned how to hustle for money other ways. She became like a fortune teller.
Okay.
And a bruja, which you know, it's a Spanish witch. Did I say spinach witch?
Kinda. I liked it though.
It feels like a sandwich. It's a Spanish witch. And when the Hernandez brothers tell her about this scam, she is completely on board. She's like, hell yeah, let me go back. I'll be a goddess. This is going to be awesome. So now she, the brothers, and this other guy named Eliezer, who is either her brother or her pimp or both, depending on what article you read, well, they all head back to Yerba Buena. Yerba Buena. Fuck. That's tough. And as they approach the town, they're like, okay, Magdalena, you stay back. And then tonight we'll tell you when to, like, enter the town. Yeah. So they have this huge ritual that night with this huge bonfire. And they're telling the townspeople that they have to summon this goddess because she said that she would only come if she was invited. Mm-hmm. They do all these things and somehow they produce this huge plume of smoke. And when it dissipates, there's Magdalena.
She's there.
Yeah. And so everyone's like, oh, like it's real shit. Again, Chance, this is the 60s.
That's so dramatic.
This is the 60s. This is not the 1800s. I feel like our parents in the 60s, well, they would have been pretty young, but even still, they'd be like, this is bullshit. What are we doing here? Well, like I said, the town completely buys it, and they start worshiping her as the new goddess, along with the brothers who are also still gods.
Well, sure. She showed up in a plume of smoke.
Yeah, she appeared. And now, for the first time probably in her entire life, Magdalena has power.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, I don't know. I can only imagine everything she had to go through.
But it sounds like she probably had to fight for what she got.
Absolutely. And now she's basically in a town where everyone's worshiping her and doing everything that she wants. She's getting everything that she needs. And of course, this goes directly to her head.
Mm-hmm. And how old is she?
They didn't say, but I think she was probably in her early 20s.
Okay.
Now, she was really into cannabis and peyote, both of which this town had in abundance.
That's awesome.
But she basically starts forcing people to ingest it. And I think she had it in like a tea because she would make them drink from this chalice.
All right.
And so people were constantly tripping on peyote. And she would have huge stacks of weed that she would just light on fire and, like, make people waft around.
Just waft it everywhere.
Yeah, so people are stoned out of their fucking minds in this town. And she is basically forcing them to drink the Kool-Aid. Because the higher people get and the more they're tripping, the more it, like, confirms that she's a goddess.
Yeah.
She's, like, pulling off all these, like... Not even sleight of hand tricks like the Hernandez brothers, but like basically dancing in front of them, and they're tripping. And they're like, oh my god, look at this goddess move. It's ridiculous. She also starts demanding that they perform animal sacrifices.
That's not nice.
It's not nice. It makes me super sad. She had these caves that were near this town that she made them build an altar, and she would sacrifice an animal, and then she would make everyone from the town drink the blood of the animal.
Gross.
I want to know what the Hernandez brothers are thinking right now.
Yeah, she's going off the deep end here.
This could have been a mistake.
We need to rein her back in.
She had convinced everybody that her and the brothers could only drink blood. That's the only thing that gods could drink. And that's what kept them, like, young,
youthful.
Yeah, and gave them eternal life. She even doubled down on the sex rituals, demanding that people commit incest and bestiality.
Come on.
I know. It's fucking terrible. At this point, 2 of the men in the village are like, what the fuck? And try to leave. But she demands that the rest of the townspeople follow them, hunt them down, bring them back, and beat them to death in front of her. Which they do.
Wow.
Again, 1963. There's townspeople beating men to death